In this video, I'm going to be breaking down the biggest mistakes that most people are making when choosing a partner. The biggest challenge with this is that most people are choosing a partner purely based on chemistry, or maybe there's proximity. Proximity, you meet someone through a friend, you meet someone at work, you meet someone through a friend of a friend, and that's how you get into a relationship. Or what happens is you choose a partner purely based on chemistry. There's that attraction, there's that primal instinct and urge to procreate with someone, right? But choosing a partner based on attraction and attraction alone is a recipe for disaster when it's not combined with compatibility. So this whole entire video is about ensuring that you have compatibility when you are choosing a partner. So here are some of the most common mistakes that most people are making so you can ensure that you are choosing a partner who is compatible with you and also ensuring that you also have that chemistry. So let's go into the very first one. The very first mistake that most people are making is they're choosing a partner, but there isn't a conversation about long-term goals, life vision. So here's what I mean by this. If I get into a relationship with someone, and let's say that I want kids and they don't want kids, that's probably not gonna work out very well. Or let's say that I'm someone who wants to go and travel and I don't wanna stay in the hometown that I lived in, but the other person, they wanna stay where they're at. Recipe for disaster. Or let's say that I really wanna get married, but the other person doesn't wanna get married. I really wanna have kids, the other person does not wanna have kids. I really want to have lots of dogs and cats. The other person hates dogs and cats. Now I'm exaggerating a little bit here, but I'm also not, because these are some things that do go on whenever it is that I'm coaching someone. So it is very important when you are dating someone to ensure that you understand, number one, what your long-term goals are. It doesn't have to be completely clear, but do have a general sense of what direction you're going in. Because if you're not clear about where it is that you're going, it's gonna be very hard to choose a partner who is compatible with you because you can't understand their goals and you can't see if it's a match if you don't know what your goals are. So that's number one. Number two, the second biggest mistake that most people are making is they're choosing a partner when there's very little values in alignment. Here's what I mean by this. If I'm very healthy and the other person is drinking beer, drinking wine every day, eating pizza, eating McDonald's, that's gonna be a little bit of a challenge. If I am someone who has a certain religion also falls under this category of values. If I'm a certain religion and the other person is a different religion, it can absolutely work out, and at the same time, just understand that it's gonna bring its potential challenges. If I'm into personal development and the other person isn't into personal development, that's gonna be a bit of a challenge. So when you are choosing a partner, ensure that you are selecting someone who has similar values as you. And I'm gonna bring it back to the very first point. You must understand what your values are yourself. What is important to you? Because if you don't know what is important to you, it's gonna be hard and challenging to choose a partner who's compatible with you, who has similar values, because you don't know what your values are. So that's the second one. The third biggest mistake that most people are making is they're choosing a partner who isn't good at communication. Here's what I mean by this. It is important to know with the other person how they respond to your boundaries, how they respond to your desires, how they are able to communicate their needs, and do they communicate their needs. And the reason why this is important is because what happens in the beginning stages of a relationship is a pretty good indicator to what can happen later on in a relationship. So for example, there's been clients who I've worked with and I have recommended them to set a boundary. And when they went out there and they set that boundary with a specific person, that person didn't respond to their boundary. In fact, they continued to cross their boundary. Now this was very early on in the dating stage. So I asked them, do you think that if they are responding this way to a small little boundary of yours, that they could then go on and not respond to a bigger boundary of yours later on? And they were like, yeah, that's a really good point, man. Of course, right? So if they're not able to respond to a small little boundary of yours, later on, when you have a big boundary that comes up, how do you think they're gonna respond and react to that? If you share your need and they dismiss and invalidate or belittle you for your needs and desires, well, how do you think the rest of the relationship is going to go? If they're not able to work through conflict well, that's a very good indicator to how the relationship will go on later on. So are they able to handle conflict well? Are they able to resolve conflict? Are they able to validate and truly listen to you and not call you names and not yell and not do childish things, right? So it is important to understand how they respond to your communication, and this also is an important conversation because you also get to look at how do you communicate. We can't hold people to a standard that we want if we are not the embodiment of what it is that we're desiring. So that's the third biggest mistake. The fourth biggest mistake mistake that most people are making is they're choosing a partner who isn't good at self-regulation or co-regulation. Here is what I mean by this. Now, in a relationship, it is inevitable that there's going to be challenges. It's inevitable that there's going to be times when you feel low, there's going to be conflict. It's inevitable. It is highly important to know that you are in a relationship with someone who can manage their emotions well. Not perfect, right? Because we're all going to have times where we don't respond well to a certain circumstance and we react. But it's not about choosing a partner who never reacts. And it's not about you never reacting. It's about minimizing the time between a conscious response to an unconscious reaction. It's not about never reacting. It's about minimizing the time between a conscious response to an unconscious reaction. So something happens in my life. I'm going to react. But how do I deal with the reaction that emerges? Does it take 7 weeks? Does it take 7 months? Or am I able, within minutes or hours, or maybe even a day, allowing myself to feel anger or whatever it might be, but then I'm able to come back to that situation, the conflict in the relationship, for example, and I'm able to handle that well. So how does that person self-regulate? How do they manage their emotions? But also, how do they co-regulate in their relationship? Are they able to co-regulate? So co-regulation, what this means is being able to come together, have practices where both of your emotions can become regulated, right? Where you can go from a fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response to then coming together and you can snuggle, you can breathe together, you can talk together. That is all forms of co-regulation in a relationship. Now, to rewind you back to what I shared in the very last mistake, it's also important to know, how do you self-regulate? How do you co-regulate in a relationship? Because again, if we want something in our life, we must ensure that we are the embodiment to what it is that we are calling into our lives. So that's number 4. And the last one, which is the biggest one, the 5th mistake that people are making, is they're choosing a partner when their mental and emotional health is constantly and consistently declining with them. And this is nuance, right? The reason why I say constantly and consistently is because there might be times where you feel down because you're going through conflict with them. But if for a long period of the relationship, for most of the relationship, if your mental and emotional health is constantly and consistently declining with them, that is an obvious sign that that person isn't compatible with you, that that person isn't a good fit for you. So I hope this video helped. Like, subscribe if you haven't already, leave a comment down below, let me know what was your biggest takeaway, and I'll see you in the very next video.